Joe Biden is the most incompetent president. And that's a very different argument than, because I remember making arguments about the Obama White House, the Obama administration. That was their ideas were bad. I disagreed with what they were trying to do. And there was obviously we could talk for hours and hours about what was going on then. But there was a competency in the socialism and big government enacting that was going on. There was some sense that while their ideas were bad, everyone knew that Barack Obama knew what was going on and was calling a lot of the shots. With Joe Biden, not only do you have bad ideas, and in many ways just a continuation of the Obama presidency and an extension of some of the far left ideas that Obama began to enact or began to make a function of national policy at for the executive branch. You have a guy who just doesn't really know what's going on. That's one part of this. And here we had an MSNBC interview with Joe Biden where it becomes very clear this is not someone who should be, and I shouldn't say becomes, we've known this all along, but yet again, here is Joe Biden when he's asked specifically, are you slowing up? And the numbers would indicate, even without knowing anything about Joe Biden, just based on age, of course he's slowing up. But here is his response to it. It's almost a minute here, but we want you to hear. This is the commander-in-chief of the United States right now, the number one executive. Play clip 2.
I think it's a legitimate thing to be concerned about anyone's age, including mine. I think that's totally legitimate. But I think the best way to make the judgment is to watch me. Am I slowing up? Don't have the same pace? Or, and that old joke, everybody talks about the new 70s, 50s, and all that stuff. It could be, I'm a great respecter of fate. I could get a disease tomorrow. I could, drop dead tomorrow. But in terms of my energy level, in terms of how much I'm able to do, I think people should look and say, does he still have the same passion for what he's doing?
I mean, Clay, it's insulting. Am I slowing up, he says, while he meanders and mumbles and is slowing up?
I can't believe they let him keep doing interviews. And I'm not someone who believes that you should have to hide the president and put him in the basement and basically script as few of activities as you possibly can. But Buck, every single time he does an interview, I think he destroys further credibility for himself and his administration. I mean, he is the best asset right now that Republicans have. I mean, the fact that he went on the road and campaigned for John Fetterman and said that he thought it was really important John Fetterman wins, I mean, that is, to me, a gift for Dr. Oz's campaign, because I can't imagine, even if you voted for Joe Biden, and I know there are some of you listening right now who did vote for Joe Biden, and I bet if you are listening to us, you are part of a large majority of people in the country who wish that Joe Biden was not now the president. And you bought into the idea that he was going to restore normalcy to the White House and that the adults were going to be back in charge and that he was going to run the nation on a bipartisan basis. And you just didn't see and or know how decrepit and dementia-laden this guy was going to be. Buck, just listening to that interview, imagine what his conversations that are unscripted are like with global leaders. There's no way if he's talking to Chairman Xi in China or he's talking to NATO leaders in the rest of the world right now that they are looking around after that call and saying, you know who's really on top of things? Joe Biden. Just compare him to DeSantis and the response to the hurricane. Just the ability to process information and know what's going on in the world. Joe Biden is a broken old man who doesn't have the wherewithal to run a single gas station, much less the United States government.
And you also touched on, I think, a critical second component of the awakening that is going on right now across the country for people that are finally, let's just say in the last few weeks, maybe in the last few months, saying, this has gone too far. This is crazy. On the one hand, there's the obvious slowing down, senility, early stage of dementia component. and also just the lack of energy of being that age. Look, at that age, there's a lot of amazing things you can do. No question about it. Being president of the United States is not one of them, okay? Not to the fullest extent that is needed for the maximum benefit of the republic. But put all that aside for a second. You mentioned Joe Biden was supposed to be a uniter. He was really supposed to calm the passions of the lunatic left. You know, that was how they sold him to Democrat swing voters or centrists or moderates or you name it. It was Joe Biden. You know he's not crazy. Meanwhile, back in reality, as in what's actually happening, Biden just at the White House hosted a transgender TikTok star named Dylan Mulvaney. And this is Joe Biden. Old man Joe Biden, supposed to be kind of traditional, Clay. Joe Biden, the friend of the union, the working man, the lunch pail over your knees when you're doing the coal mining, you know, all this total propaganda around Joe Biden they've been pushing for years. This is what he says about transgender surgery / affirming care, whatever they're calling it, for minors. Play clip 3.
Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming health care?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
I just want to be clear, Clay, your home state, we had on the Attorney General for Tennessee, last week? Joe Biden here, the President of the United States, Mr. Moderate, gun-toting, love the Constitution, blue dog Democrat Joe or whatever. That Joe Biden is saying that states that are preventing gender mutilation of children is immoral and illegal. That's the Joe Biden who sits in the Oval Office.
Yeah, look, and again, I would go and continue to echo that. I think we have Biden voters. I think we got a lot of Black, Hispanic, Asian voters out there, especially parents. What do we say? The parents are breaking, I think it was 64 to 29, like basically a 35-point margin. If you have kids, you are overwhelmingly voting Republican this midterm. I think it's because this is evil. Let's just call this what it is. And before I get into the transgender affirming care, Buck, we don't allow kids to get tattoos under the age of 18 years old because we're worried about what tattoos they may get, and we don't want that to be on their arms or their legs or their backs or wherever you get a tattoo for the rest of their lives. Yet we're going to allow 14-year-olds to get their genitals chopped off and change their gender forever, and it's a moral right, and states shouldn't be trying to protect minors, teenagers, from making life-altering decisions like this. I question whether Joe Biden, Buck, can even comprehend what he's saying on this issue, because I find it impossible to believe he really believes it.
It also, though, goes to the reality here that Joe Biden, his entire presidency was sold to the American people on really a series of lies. Now, people are yelling out right now what those lies are. There's a lot of them. But the notion of Joe Biden as a moderate, uniting, calming presence in American politics. You just heard the President of the United States say that anyone who tries to stand in the way of activists deciding to push a 14-year-old to cut off her female breasts and take testosterone or whatever to transition to male, anyone who stands in the way of that is immoral and breaking the law, it's not legal based on what? Joe Biden knows nothing about the law. But that's who the president is right now, everyone. They always say, Clay, it's just a minor issue. Why do Republicans make such a big deal of it? This is from the President of the United States.
It's a big deal. And we should also make clear, I think, Buck, if you're over 18, if you are an adult and you want to get these treatments, they're allowed. Now, we can question whether it's going to ultimately make the person who's doing it happier. But all we're saying right here is we shouldn't be doing these kind of surgeries to minors. We shouldn't be cutting genitals off of 14-year-olds.
Children.
I mean, this is crazy.
Biden was asked about, this is all about children and state laws protecting children from the trans agenda of gender-affirming care, meaning removing genitalia, cutting off breasts, putting puberty blockers in place, all these things. And Joe Biden says there's a moral duty to allow that. That's Mr. Moderate, uniting Democrat that you can trust who's not crazy.
That's the closing argument, Buck. This is what the Democrats are focused on. I mean, this is the tank for the number one pick argument I'm making. It's mind-blowing to me.
We had told you that there was some DOJ announcement at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, and I see here from the Washington Examiner the big national security story that was announced was DOJ charges Chinese spies for obstructing Huawei investigation. Huawei is a big Chinese telecom company that's effectively an organ of the Chinese Communist Party, as all companies are in China. This to me, is this Clay meant to give? Because there was some talk. First of all, the big thing would be if they did anything about Mar-a-Lago, but they didn't. That's not happening. That would have been an interesting news day. Also, the possibility of threats to election integrity. That was one of the reports that I saw that turned out to not be true, at least not yet. What is the purpose of reporting on, or I should say, of holding this conference today to give CNN and the New York Times, etc., something to talk about other than Joe Biden saying that minors should have transgender surgery and anyone who stands in the way is a monster? I want to be clear, like what possible, this is a nothing burger among nothing burgers in this news cycle right now. I mean, this is not even a nothing burger with cheese. This is some really weak sauce. Why? Is this just the DOJ doesn't know what it's doing unless it's persecuting pro-life activists? Like, what's going on here?
I mean, I'm struggling to even think, because I thought they're trying to change the narrative, but I'm going to the New York Times website right now, and they are pretty much focusing on the new prime minister in England, Rishi Sunak, who is now taking over there, by the way, for those of you who are obsessed with the prime minister situation. Buck, I was having fun with this last night. So I watched House of the Dragon, season finale, the new Game of Thrones
spoilers.
prequel.
I'm 2 episodes behind, so no spoilers.
So you stuck
Clay.
with it because you were like, I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with this. Like,
was it worth it? Just tell me that. Is the payoff worth it? Is it worth getting through?
I mean, I'm going to watch season 2, but I gave it overall a B. Like, a solid
I could
B.
tell.
But anyway, so I think you'll probably, my bet is you'll probably think of it like me. It's a B or B minus when you finish the first season. So I'm watching that. And then over the weekend, did we play the clip yet of Biden seeming to forget who Dr. Jill Biden was? I think we have that clip. Let's play that. I know we had the MSNBC clips of Biden stumbling and bumbling his way through so many different answers. The one that went viral that I saw early on Saturday, before college football took over my entire Saturday, listen to, I believe we've got that cut of Biden getting interviewed, and you can hear the interviewer get concerned. He's like, it's like he's trying to wake him up. Listen to this.
It's my intention to run again. And we have time to make that decision.
Dr. Biden is for it. Mr. President. Oh.
Dr. Biden thinks that, my wife thinks that we're doing something very important.
I mean, that sounds even worse, just the audio, Buck. The video's bad because you can hear the interviewer feel as if he doesn't understand the question or he's nodded off or something.
I mean, honestly, the guy should be, with the grandkids using crayons and feeding the ducks. Like, this is just crazy. And yet here he is doing this stuff, running the country. I mean, leader of the free world, most powerful position on the planet, deciding what legislation gets passed, has the authority to effectively start a war if he decides to. I know not constitutionally, but we all know how that goes. And this is the guy? I mean, this is really what they've got right now. I mean, I think that for a lot of people, Clay, also, the number one story on Fox right now, we knew that this was the truth, but I think that right before the election, for Biden to come out and say that transgender surgery for minors is something that no one can oppose without being, to oppose it is to be immoral. To oppose it is to be in the wrong. That is just, there's no way to sell that to a moderate, okay, folks? This administration's out of its mind.
It's not even sell it to a moderate, Buck. I'm surrounded by parents. When you got young kids, everywhere you go is a kid-related event. Other parents are there. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. this is something that I would say 90% of parents are opposed to the idea of kids being, and let's reinforce exactly what this is, this gender reassignment surgery. So we've got record high inflation. We've got a wide open southern border with more criminals coming across by the data on the watch list. I think I saw Bill Mallusion tweet this out earlier. Nearly 100 known criminals / watch list perpetrators have been caught, which is orders of magnitude more than had ever occurred before. So we have more violent perpetrators legitimately coming across the border than we've ever apprehended before. We certainly have got crime at its high for the 21st century. And this is important, I think, Buck. The Biden White House elected to have this person, this man who now identifies as a woman, who has been a woman for only 10 months and is evidently popular on TikTok. They gave this person
can't actually be a woman. Can we just to clarify? Not actually a woman, claims to be a woman, which is the whole central point. Right?
Yeah, a guy who only for the last 10 months has claimed to be a woman. I'm not even saying this is not even like a long-term transgender activist. Active on TikTok. They gave an exclusive interview to this person with the President of the United States as part of their closing message for what Joe Biden represents. And Joe Biden said it's immoral to not allow 14 and 15-year-olds to chop their genitals off. If you have a problem with that, you are an immoral person that he doesn't understand how you could even have that perspective. It blew my mind when I saw this last night come across my thread, Buck.
And it's obviously also the case that the Democrats, and I know this would go in, talk radio, people get all fired up about things, and it's all fear-mongering and everything else. No, they really are coming for your kids, folks. I mean, not just with the school shutdowns and all the destruction that hath wrought, not just with wokeness and the general left-wing bent of the schools all over the place. Clay, this stuff that they're doing, and we keep seeing more and more footage of this. We keep seeing it's happening over and over and over again, where they have these transgender shows, these drag shows, and they want children to be there. And this isn't a one-off thing. This keeps happening. There was more footage of one over the weekend, and sometimes even I forget where it was over the weekend. One of them was a taxpayer-funded event.
Yeah,
they want to have children at drag shows with adult men gyrating their, nether regions in front of small children, and they want us to shut up about it and call us bigots when we say there's a problem. And this is something that when Joe Biden is saying this, everybody, I want you to understand, this is from the top of the apparatus. This is not a fringe of the apparatus. The left, the Democrats are all in on this. They think this is the new civil rights struggle. They really believe this, and they insist that we say that a man can be a woman. And their game that they've been playing, Clay, is, it's just one athlete. Well, as you know, because you and your team and Outkick cover this all the time, it's not just one athlete. It's more and more and more. It's happening all the time. It's happening in high schools, happening in college, happening pro, Olympics, you name it. And now with the drag shows and the gender transition clinics for kids, they are doing this and specifically targeting it at children. I mean, if a parent brought a 5-year-old to some kind of like a cabaret show with adult females doing the things that these adult males are doing, somehow everyone knows that's really weird. That's really inappropriate. Like there's a problem here, right? But when there's an adult male dressed as a woman with a wig and maybe massive fake implants and fishnets on, we're supposed to think that this is healthy and normal. But Clay, you and I both know this. If we go on Twitter and we call this out, there'll be blue check libs who are saying, "You're so bigoted. What's wrong with you? Why are you're Hitler?" This is from Biden. This is from the top.
I saw it, and it is so tone deaf. The analogy I've used, and I used it in the first hour again, is it feels like they're tanking for the overall number 1 draft pick, because I can't think of something that is more tone deaf, that fewer people agree with, but also that it would be at the top of your list of, hey, we got to make our closing argument. Let's go make sure that kids get their genitals chopped off. Can I give you a troubling, like that's what you want to say?
A troubling, not counter to that, Clay, but possibility here, right, is, yeah, sure, right now it looks like they're tanking. In their minds, this is just phase 1. They're already doing these drag shows and getting kids to come to them. Sure, maybe it'll cost them this election, but you have to think like these lunatic activists. Who's been winning the last 20 years? What have they been able to get to? At this point, they've already transformed society where you know the sports media better than anybody. What happens if you say a 6-foot-tall man with, or 6'5" man with male genitalia shouldn't be competing against women in the following sports? Every single person in the sports world, pretty much, right, except for you, says you're a bigot. Look at what I know. See, this is the thing.
Yeah.
Right now, they've overreached, but they view the overreach as incrementalism toward the eventual goal. So this is why I think it's so important for us to confront it. Because what do they always do? Oh, why are you fixated on this? Why are you making such a big
culture
deal of it?
wars? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they say,
I worry
that
it's just happened out of North Carolina. You were telling me during the break, Buck, you saw the video on Instagram. There's a dude identifying as a girl in North Carolina high school athletics. We had this story up on Outkick over the weekend. I'm not an expert on volleyball, but I watched the video on Saturday when my team was about to post it. This guy looks to be a full-grown dude, skyrockets, has an incredible vertical up over the top of the net, and smashes a spike that catches a girl in the face. The guy's coaching women's volleyball. Said it's the hardest hit ball he's seen in 40 years of women's volleyball. Now, the net is lower. The guy's bigger, tougher, stronger, than the girl would be. And she got hit in the face, and she has got such a bad concussion that her season is over, evidently. And all these other North Carolina schools said, as a result, we're not playing against this team anymore. So when people are saying, and you're right, Buck, they try and lecture you and say, oh, this doesn't happen very much. It's happening. It's going to happen in your town. It's going to happen in your school district. It's going to happen in one of your girls' competitions. This is insane madness, and it has to end.
And it is a inherently dishonest evasion. You'll see some of the guys on the left who pretend that they're tough guys, like, oh, I'm an alpha male leftist, but they're like, well, this doesn't happen, because they know they can't defend this. This doesn't happen that often. You'll see that. And you say, it should never happen is the point.
It's
and
the same thing they said about people getting shoved in front of the subway. It's like, right. If it happens at all, it's indefensible.
This should never happen. This should never occur. If you see that video, I actually just brought up to Clay a few moments ago. I hadn't seen it yet, of the girl getting hit in the face with the volleyball. I mean, first of all, it is vicious. And you wonder at what point, so if a girl gets paralyzed competing against a biological male with male genitalia, also known as a man, at that point will people maybe realize that this is madness? At what point do the Democrat activists, including Joe Biden, who approves of this stuff, by the way. I mean, they've got, silent generation Democrats who've been in office longer than I've been alive, who are suddenly like, yeah, a guy can be a girl. Sure, that's real. That's a thing. At what point does it go too far? I think the answer is it never goes too far for them. This is just all about submission. It's submission to the will of the collective. If they can make you say that a man is a woman, Clay, they can make you say anything. Imagine you're the family of that girl, by the way. I would be, oh, man. It would, I can't even say what the thought processes I would have about some guy smashing, if that's my daughter, that's my sister, smashing a volleyball into her face because he thinks he's a girl. Unacceptable.
Not only that, Buck, where the hell are the Title IX activists? Where are these supposed women, the feminists out there who want women to have the ability to compete on level playing fields? They're all cowards. They're allowing, look, we just set an NCAA record. The greatest women's swimmer of the year, it was a dude who decided to become a woman. Think about
just remember, there were feminists who were arguing the burqa in Afghanistan was liberating. I mean, the feminist left in this country is an abject disgrace and actually involves more destruction and degradation of women than almost any other movement.